Welcome to Tembea Study. Before I continue, please remember to subscribe on all our social handles because we provide quality and informative stuff that will be very helpful not only for you, not for your family, but also for your friends. But then, we have been talking a lot about student life, and I've been doing a series about students. And I believe that this is something that is so evident and so important in so many migrants' life. And this information will not only benefit students, but I think it will also benefit other people who generally migrate to any country and they want to settle down comfortably and be on their feet as soon as possible. Now, today, we need to talk about choosing a course. In every country that you're going to choose, whether you're traveling to Europe or Australia or New Zealand or anything. So in the previous video, I talked about demand. And if you've ever done, business in school, they'll always tell you there's demand in everything. For example, let's say you want to start a business, you have to think about demand. You have to think about demand, and you also have to think about supply. So many of these countries that we travel to, mostly from other countries, we always need to think about the demand that they have and the supply that they have. So let's say, for example, if you are choosing a course and then after doing your own research, you realize that the demand or the supply is more than demand, it is very important for you to be careful about that course. Instead of proceeding with that course and choosing and saying, look, I still need to progress and do the same course, it's always something you should think about. Instead of actually doing something that you believe that so many people have applied for, it is always important to do something that you think that they require, but few people are applied for. For example, there's one thing that always will be in demand. Number one, health. Most courses that are health related, there's high chances that they will always have demand. What else? Sometimes we do have IT, but then with IT, it's something that you need to be very specific about, because whether you're an IT specialist or you're a programmer, but what kind of IT do you want? And mostly if you're choosing IT, you need to think broadly. You need to think about what can you really do to self-develop yourself. Is self-develop? Or what can you really do to equip yourself further or either progress with your studies? Because if you choose a course and then you realize that you're doing IT, but then you're not self-developing yourself or you're not equipping or progressing yourself, then it is hard for you, to compete in the market. Remember, in these countries, mostly they will be using the point system, or they'll be using a structure that they have to, you have to bring in your experience, you have to bring up your qualifications, your education, the country that you're migrating from. All those points are added together, and then you get on this list. So let's say, for example, every state is different. So, like for example, in Australia, every state is different. So, NSW might be inviting with 95 points, right? So let's say, for example, the highest applicants has 140 points, right, on their expression of interest. So if they have 140 points and then you got 95, that means you and them, there's a difference of around 45 points. That's a difference, right? So what you need to do is, once you get the qualification that you are getting, the course that you are doing, if you are really equipped, like you have added some extra, training, you've also done some maybe other courses or diplomas or masters or PhD. So the higher you go, remember, the more points you gather. All right. So the people who have, for example, a diploma cannot compete will be less points than people who have a degree, right? So it is very important for you to think about, now that I'm deciding to do a particular course, is it something that is in very high demand? If it's in high demand, then you might not require a lot of self-development, all right? Like if you're doing mostly of health, stuff like to do with engineering, those kind of stuff. So if you're doing a course that is highly marketable, you don't have to do a lot of self-development. But if you are doing a course that is not very not very demandable or not in high demand. Let's say, for example, you're doing a course, for example, like something like, what do you say? Social work is good because social work, you work in people, they'll always need social workers. Let's say you're doing marketing, for example, which is okay, or you are doing business administration, right? So any of these courses that you are doing, because they are good courses, remember, but the demand is not as much as the supply. So the supply will be too many people who maybe have done these courses, and because they are really struggling to fit all these people in their migration system, what they will do, they will then raise the points. Say, let's say, for example, all other occupations, for example, a social worker will be invited with 80 points, for example, right? A marketing specialist will be invited with 120 points. So how do you make your life easier? That's where you need to come up with a plan and think about what can you really do. Even if it means that you can actually go for a bridging course, that's okay. You can go for a bridging course in these universities and transition to a different occupation that you are sure will be on high demand. High demand courses are always, very expensive, 100%. But then by the end of the day, whether it's a money making business or whatever, by the end of the day, you get what you want. So let's say, for example, people have chosen to follow the pathway of engineering. The money that they pay, the school fees that they pay, is not the same as someone who is doing, a diploma, or who is doing anything like community services or any course like, let's say, for example, IT or accounting. You can't compare them, right? So these guys will be paying lots of money per semester. Maybe it will be $16,000 or 18, depending on which university you're studying in. But then for the people who are doing other courses like business administration, marketing, you'll find that their school fees might range around $12,000. The difference is not that big, but the outcome will be so essential, because these guys will be fighting for very high points to just get invited. But then the engineering people, social work, nursing, courses like that, like courses that actually deal with people, because they will always be in demand. So there are some courses that you choose that will always be in demand. And why am I saying this? The reason I'm talking about demand and supply here is, if you go for a course that is in demand, then let's say, for example, in future you have plans to stay in these countries, and because they'll always need skilled migrants, instead of taking someone from overseas, they will consider a student who has studied in their own university, who has done a placement here, and who has obtained experience from Australia. So then, because of that, what will happen? They will give you priority and invite you maybe to be part of their migration system, and maybe they might invite you to be a permanent resident in the country, or then that will lead to either citizenship or whatever. So there will be stability by the end of the day. But then, it's not that the course that you're studying, it's not that you're studying the wrong course, but the fact is, if then your course has low demand, then what they'll do is, they'll make it so competitive in terms of, because let's say for example, we have 1,000 social workers in 2024. But then we have 5,000 accountants on the same year. And then we have another 5,000 or 10,000 people doing IT. So from all these considerations, then it's important for you to think about it and be like, okay, there is a high chance that these people will be competing for only 1,000 chances. Accountants will be competing for 5,000 chances. IT will be competing for 5,000 chances. But then, the higher the demand, the easier it is. Does that make sense? So, as a student, or if you are thinking about choosing the best course from where you are, it doesn't matter what country you are coming from. But so long as you are choosing any course, think about the demand of that course and the supply. Once you get this right, Then you make a decision about the course. Make a decision and choose a course that you are a sure bet that this will not only, cost you in terms of money-wise, but also the outcome will be beneficial for you. And then in the next video, we'll talk more about this and try to explore about the other options that we have, and you can consider even before you lodge that visa to travel to Australia. Think about it, because I believe this is something that will determine how your next 5 years will look like.